So there are two ways that this ends. You're either going to retire or you're going to die working. Either way, you should probably be thinking about the next person who's going to be in your role because it's going to happen at some point. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Outsider Information. I am your host, Brandon, and your strategic partner here with OIAS. As always, if anything here resonates, give a like, subscribe, and engage with the platform, not just here, also on Instagram, and give the website a couple of clicks as well. Drink of the episode. No surprise, we've got tea. It is never too late in the day for a cup of tea, but this one in particular, bold, rich, smooth, bourbon black cask from Harney & Sons. Early in the week, too early in the day for a little bourbon, so you get your notes this way. Again, it is one of my favorites. Okay, morbid intro aside, this episode is all about succession planning 101. And I know that is a scary thought for a certain generation who feels like they are going to work forever, in contrast to my generation who can't wait to stop working. So what this is going to be for is for those who are considering it, right? It's going to give you a broad template of what it could look like over a timeline. And honestly, most responsible and sane thing you can do, not really just for your organization, but for yourself. Think about the stress that comes when somebody is taking something over because there is no way to transfer that knowledge. This should allow you to do just that, setting you up for success down the road and setting those who you leave behind for it as well. Now, we've got 5 stages that we're going to look at of how this could all go, and it starts with stage 1, which is creating a map. We're going to go into all of these. Stage 2, defining what that succession looks like. Stage 3, finding your successor. We're going to spend a lot of time here because that is the toughest part. Stage 4, that soft transition. Stage 5, the hard transition. Now, when I talk about this particular subject, it does mean something to me, not just because I have tried to leave or at least put someone in position where they could be a succession in key spots after I've left certain areas. Tried, hasn't always been successful. But because when we look at how a lot of organizations are structured, we have a lot of people who are essential characters, usually by their own making. Now, there is a difference, an essential character and a main character. A lot of people make themselves essential, and it hurts organizations. And when we look even further down the psychological line, in a lot of ways, it's an abuse tactic. You make yourself so valuable, so essential, that if anything were to happen to you, whether it be by choice or by necessity, everything crumbles around you, withholding resources, withholding knowledge, making it so that the world can't function without you. We should not want that. Now, this isn't an argument to just start axing people who are getting close to the end, but you do want to have some conscious thought of what could this look after so-and-so is gone. This is a very athletic mindset. We are always thinking about what the next plan is going to be whenever you've got somebody great. And it makes things less stressful long term, right? Because when you've got somebody who's there that's holding resources, resistant to change, these things don't move, it's stressful, it creates resentment. And of course, we see at the end, it's never sustainable. What we should want is to be a main character. And the difference between a main character and an essential character is that main characters have a level of mobility. Main characters are able to change their own storyline. When you're an essential character, it's very fixed, it's very in a straight line, and if anything deviates, the entire thing breaks. Again, we don't want that. Now, if you're going to apply that to your own business or your own role, there are a lot of ways to play with that context. If I look at how I've done it in the past, mainly in athletics, I tried to hire at least one assistant who could or wanted to be a head coach, because not only are you going to be getting quality, but things happen. Like, I can think of one instance in particular where on the first day of practice, I was in a car accident and I had to miss it. If you don't have good, competent people behind you to kind of run the show, then you are unable to really function as an entity. Now, that was different because in athletics, a lot of us are very guarded with our secrets and our knowledge, which is a bit of a problem because you are worried that that person could usurp you in your role or take what they have and use it against you. That was never my mode or my mindset. I looked at every role, and still look at every role that I have, as finite. Somebody probably can do it better. Have to find that person, but I am not the be all to end all. And when I look at it that way, it gives me a sense of calm and some clarity, because I can move forward knowing that even if I do go, it should be in good hands if everything else clicks. But I get why people don't bring equals. So I'm not just saying to don't do that. There's a lot of people who just try to usurp people by choice, by force, and that is just part of the whole human variable and equation. But you just have to know your situation, know your role, and know where and what you can provide in those instances. So we have one scenario that we're going to play around with, and as we do that, we are going to go through all 5 of these stages and see what this potential succession plan could look like. All right. So what we got here is a family-owned restaurant. Both partners, they are still alive, they're healthy, but there's a little bit of age to them. They have 3 kids. None of them want to take over this restaurant. The owners would like to retire in 2029, 3-ish years. So we are kind of up against the brink. I won't say it's too late, but we're kind of pushing up against the cap of kind of where this window could or should look like. And then we're just going to assume that nobody else in-house wants to take it. So where does that leave everybody right now? Now, what we're not going to be able to touch on here are the legal aspects of what this entails when you're talking about estates, all that type of stuff, the transferring of assets. This is just to kind of give you a breakdown of the process itself and how it can look if you were to go this route. So let's get into stage 1, which is mapping out your plan. The window that we try to approach with this is about 3 to 5 years. It really does take that amount of time when you are talking about really looking at something along this scale. So can a succession be built quicker than that? Yeah, if you're just transferring roles, it can be condensed, right? You need to find the right person. You need to get them trained, onboarded. We're still probably looking at about a year if you want to do it right. But in a case like this, where you're selling a business, trying to get it all moved over, you're probably looking at 3 to 5. And if you're at the point where you're looking at moving, selling, or retiring, you're probably looking at that 3 to 5 years out, right? What that's going to look like, getting everything in order so it can be smooth. But there are some questions that you do want to ask yourself, and you want to set your parameters. So we already have that. 2029 is about when these people say they want to retire. The question you have to ask yourself is, if you hit that cap, are you extending, right? Are you going to maybe bleed that into 2030, or are you just going to close it down? There's merits to both. There are downsides to both. If you have a soft cap for that extension, that's reasonable, right? Maybe you get everything into motion and you're in 2027 and you still want to kind of do this along that timeline. Maybe that soft cap extends it deeper into 2029, maybe 2030. Okay, you got me there. You're still transitioning. Things get delayed after stage 3. It can happen. The no cap transition, though, is dangerous because it puts no end in sight. So if you don't set that hard cap and you just have 2029 as a benchmark, but it's not really something you're committed to, suddenly you could be holding on to something you don't want. Years and years down the line, you're losing time. Maybe your health is deteriorating and your own plan doesn't work. But things happen, right? Maybe you decide you want to close down. That could be the right decision. Now, it can also feel very incomplete. It also has ripple effects, not just on you, but the people around it. People are going to lose jobs. The legacy ends. Maybe it hurts the community. There are a lot of factors that you want to look into here. But when you map things out, you're setting these parameters, you're putting things in place, and it allows you to check your own progress. You can set markers. The map can always be redrawn, but if you're going to do that, you're doing so with just a little bit of caution. You don't want to deviate too far from your own planning if you can avoid it. So that is stage 1. Stage 2 is trying to figure out what that succession looks like. Now you've drawn your map. Where is the treasure, right? It's established that no one in the family wants it. No one in-house wants it. Are you going to go with a Band-Aid succession or a true succession? That Band-Aid succession is finding somebody to kind of temporarily take things over. You're just trying to offload it. move it on, and see where it goes from there. Or you're trying to find that true succession, which could take a little bit more time, right? You want to find the right person who's going to carry on, in this case, the restaurant's name, keep the quality alive, and really move things forward. Do you want to keep things the same? Do you want change? Are you comfortable with that? When you define what your succession starts to look like, you're factoring in all these things, and there's going to be a lot that maybe you weren't thinking about as you start to map it out. Leaving relinquishes control, but your choice in a lot of ways helps maintain it, because that is an impression off of you. You chose who is going to be taking over what you have done. Now, you've likely thought about stages 1 and 2. You just have to actually commit to it and begin really processing what you are going to be doing into stage 3. In stage 3, like I said, we're going to be spending a lot of time here, is now you get to start looking for that succession, really tapping into those sources of people. Now, there are a lot of ways that this can be done. Again, assuming you've got somebody helping with this, you're probably not running your business, in this case a restaurant, and actively searching for your successor. And the reason why this takes the longest is because the implications are so high. The good news, though, is people exist. We just pretend that they don't because we've got a lot of checklists and boxes of things that really make it harder than it should be to find people that are not just competent, but that would thrive in the situation that's given to them. It's the hardest because finding the right ones is hard. Finding people is easy, finding the right ones is hard. And you have to really ask yourself, where do you begin to look? And a lot of places get this wrong because they are looking in conventional spaces. On the surface, you think somebody who wants a restaurant, you want to find somebody who wants to be in the business of running a restaurant. That is just not where we are in 2025. There are a lot of people who would want to branch into this. There's social media. You can find people who are constantly posting their work, cooking schools, talented chefs who are on the rise looking for their next opportunity. Creativity matters when you are trying to find the right person. Again, where a lot of search firms fall short is they're using their networks. I get emails all the time from staffing agencies that I had some connection with asking me if I could tap into my network to find somebody that might be interested in the mediocre role that they are having trouble filling. The answer for me is always no, and I usually outline those reasons, but because my network, you shouldn't be tapping into somebody else's network like that. Again, social media, cooking schools, go to a restaurant and see what you can dig up. There are so many people who would be starving for an opportunity like this that you can find if you want to be creative with it, but you just have to set those parameters. Most people themselves are opportunistic, waiting for the opportunity. They're not looking for it, but if it comes to them, they are always willing to listen to a good pitch. You yourself have to be comfortable being told no a lot, right? Things have to make sense for both sides, and some people just might not be ready, willing, or able at that moment. When we are finding people, we always look for the things that we like. We look for the things that we like about others, about ourselves, because we in a lot of ways are trying to look at a mirror reflection, which when you think about it is a big mistake because we're also very critical as people, not just of others, but also as ourselves. So if you see something that maybe creates that reaction, regardless of how good it is, you might be scratching off the next best thing because you are jaded. You're already committing to this change here, so you got to be open to everything. And you got to listen to the pitches, the proposals, and how it can all work. All right. A couple of notes, just kind of as we hit this midpoint. Revisiting stage 1 and 2, you've set the map, you've defined what the successor could look like. You're now looking for people. What's the map say? You don't want to overthink it. Think about your journey up to this point as you have taken something over. You've grown with it. You have seen it flourish. You know what it is, what it probably was at its peak, and what it could be going forward. Look for emulation, not replication. That is something that I say a lot because if you're transferring an asset over to somebody, it's not going to be a carbon copy, a clone of what it was in the past. You've got to be comfortable that somebody's going to take what has already worked and put their spin on it. And that is how this thing moves forward. So now we get to stage 4, which is that soft transition. We're going to assume that this restaurant this ownership group has found the right person. We'll speed the clock up. We're in 2027-ish. And that soft transition is about ushering them into the environment, giving them a chance to really learn, assess, not necessarily create yet, but get the grips of things, probably in a 75-25 split that gradually starts transferring assets, the culture, all the changes to make something that was once yours, now theirs. And as you continue to migrate, that scale slides. You get into 2028, maybe 75-25 turns to 50-50 in terms of management. You start to let things go, and you go from daily operations to more of a support role as things start to get divvied up. Stage 5 is that hard transition where you now start to go into the overview. 2029, we'll say we're here, and maybe you are in this phase at 25-75, right? They are mostly running operations. You're not really in there like you were, and you are just watching from a distance, providing support where you can. If this feels like an onboarding plan, that is exactly what it is. Again, the implications are really the same across the board. It just depends on the position. You don't want this to be messed up when you are transferring your asset over. If you are hiring somebody, you want that hire to have the best chance for success. And the reason why it takes so long and why it took so long in the past, we've gotten away from this mode of hiring, training, and onboarding, is people wanted to get it right. And if you're selling a business to somebody, you want to get it right, not just because it's not yours anymore, but because your legacy is still attached to it. If you have a restaurant or a business with your name on it and it's not changing, and somebody else takes over it and craters it into the ground, that's still an unfortunate reflection on you. You want the person you're investing in to be successful. Success takes time, and if it takes less time, that's great. But if it fails, you want every reason to not be the reason that it fails. Okay, so that is a real oversimplification of the process, but I think you see it, right? 3 to 5 years, 5 stages, a gradual process for something like this. Again, if you are just transitioning somebody out of a pretty important role, you could probably do this in 6 months to a year, as long as you are all on board with the plan. But something like this gives everyone actual time to move on. The time sets everyone up for success. Main characters don't become essential characters, and you have a gradual leveling of the process. It's a way to do it, right? It's not the way, and as always, with the stuff that we talk about here, it's not about saving the world, just about not making it worse. Okay, that's all we got for this one. As always, if anything resonates, give a like, subscribe, and engage, not just here on YouTube, but Instagram and the website as well. As always, appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time.